He made a tremendous decision to join us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics today. As always, coming to you from our phenomenal studios, because we have former offensive line coach and offensive line coach guru, offensive line coach extraordinaire, one of the greatest to ever do it, Jim McNally. And Jim McNally is a guy that coached a lot of great players, a lot of years in the National Football League, 28 years coaching, consulting for another decade plus after that. I mean, he is a lifer. He is a football lifer, and he has some unbelievable stories about coaching great players. And he went into a little bit of nostalgia about coaching offensive lines here for the Cincinnati Bengals in the early part of this podcast. Then Jim McNally got to a discussion about Scott Peters. And Jim McNally is a mentor for Scott Peters. Scott Peters will be the first to admit it. He played for Jim McNally when they were both with the New York Giants. And he learned a lot of technique, a lot of fundamentals, a lot of schematic from Jim McNally. And Jim McNally talks about how successful he thinks Scott Peters is going to be. And, man, I'll tell you what, there's a bond between those two. And they are both football fanatics. There's no question about it. Great football coaches. And their passion for the game is unquestioned. As we know, Jim McNally loves football. You're going to love Jim McNally. We appreciate you giving us some of your valuable time and joining us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. As always, we're coming to you from the studio that they built for us, and it is second to none, as is our guest. He is one of one. He is second to none. We're talking about a guy who was a coach in the National Football League for 28 years. Unbelievable run for offensive line coach Jim McNally. Coach, you are the best. Honestly, man, you're the best. And you're going in the Hall of Fame, proving that you're the best. Tell us about that first. First, welcome. And secondly, congratulations on an honor that is well-deserved and earned, sir.
Well, thank you, Dave. Also, after I worked the 28 years full-time, I worked another 10 or 11 as a consultant with the Saints, the Jets, and then with the Bengals for another 10 years. So I've been doing this football for almost all my life since I was an adult.
Unbelievable.
But the Hall of Fame that I will be inducted into is under the umbrella of the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. But the people that go in the regular Hall of Fame are the great players and the great coaches, like Anthony Munoz or Vince Lombardi as a coach, etc. Tom Landry, Walter Payton. And then under the umbrella, they decided 4 or 5 years ago they need to honor assistant coaches, trainers, video people who also are good contributors to the team. And so they call this the Awards of Excellence. And it'll be in June 25th and 26th. So what it is they honor the assistant coaches and, as I said, trainers, video people, etc. And it's the highest award you can get as an assistant coach, because they don't put any assistant coaches in the Hall of Fame. The only one I can think of is Dick LeBeau, but he was also in there as a great player. So anyway, there's only 2 other offensive line coaches that are already in the Awards of Excellence. That's Alex Gibbs, who was the great coach at Denver, who's deceased, and Dante Scarnecchia, who worked with Tom Brady for all those years at the Patriots. So I feel quite lucky to be in the company of those other 2. So yes, it's quite a tribute. I can't go any higher unless the man upstairs takes me when I croak.
Coach, I'll tell you, it's well deserved. There was none that did did their job any better than Jim McNally. I'm telling you that right now. And I mean, it is it's an honor that I'm glad that you and your family get to enjoy that together, and your friends, and it'll be a heck of a day for you in June, man. It'll be a nice 2-day event up there for sure.
Yes,
Looking
well,
forward
thank you
to
very
it.
much.
Yeah. So you coached a lot of great players. Anthony Munoz, you mentioned, the greatest lineman I've ever seen. I think the greatest lineman that ever walked the face of the earth. But he is very, very definite about the impact that you had in his development to be the great player that he became. He said, without Jim McNally, he's said this many times, I've publicly and privately, and I fully agree, that without Jim McNally, a different story, as well as the other part of the Mexican connection. I think Max Montoya is as good a guard that's ever walked the face of the earth, and he feels the same way about you. So, we know, the great offensive line that we had that you coached up, and you coached two different lines. There was some carryover, obviously. You got Munoz and Montoya, the Mexican connection on both of them, but two different lines to two Super Bowls with the Super Bowl 16, Super Bowl 23 with the Bengals. That's impressive stuff, Coach. And that's just one little tidbit of the massive career that you.
And don't forget, Dave, you were part of the first one, and you were a great player for us and for me, because I will tell the story that I tell everyone that one year Dave played every position on the line versus the Chicago Bears. He played
Nice.
left tackle, then the next series left guard, then the next series center, then the next series right guard, then the next series right tackle. He played more than the starters because he played every single position on the line. And this was because one year when I was there, for some reason, Dave was the sixth man. And then he ended up the next year being the starter for a couple of years. So Dave was a starter for us. But one year he was like the sixth man. I said, this guy's too good to be the sixth man. He's as good or better than the five guys playing. So we found a way to get him in and play every position on the line. Plus, he played left guard in our first Super Bowl versus the 49ers. And he was really one of my early guys. And then after that, I ended up learning a little more, getting a little bit better as a coach with techniques. And I may have not taught Dave all the newer techniques that I learned as I grew, but Dave was an outstanding pass protector. We played the San Diego Chargers, and he played a guy named Gary Big Hands Johnson, who had a great
Big
big
hands.
swat. He would swat your shoulders, boom, boom, boom. And so we
Right.
put Dave way up on the line in a 2-point stance. He got so close to the defensive guy, and when the ball was snapped, he just stuck his arms out and he stymied this Gary Big Hands All Pro Johnson for the entire game. So Dave was
Yeah.
coachable, and he was a better player, or as good a player as he is an announcer, because all you guys out there, all you hear him is talking football, but he could play. And he played at a great Syracuse team under the great old-time coach Ben Schwartzwalder. So Dave has quite a legacy, quite a pedigree himself for you fans out there listening to this podcast.
I appreciate that very much, Coach. Yeah, I mean, I remember you said, look, you got to get on the ball against this guy. And, of course, on the ball is as close as you can, to the back tip of the football. When you're off the ball, you line up kind of in the center's numbers and have a little separation. And you're like, you got to crowd this guy. Lapham, get up there, man, get on him. So, I was like in a 2-point stance. I had my chin back, so I wasn't offsides. And
arch your back,
I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I had you arch your back so you could
Exactly.
your head wouldn't be offsides. Yes,
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you sure about this, Coach? You're like, I'm telling you, it's going to work. It's going to work. And you were exactly right. You're exactly right. It was unbelievable.
So so you were as much a part of me as any of those other guys, and we can't forget Joe Walter. Now, don't forget.
Oh yeah.
Boomer was left-handed. Now Joe's about 6'7", okay, and he weighed about 310, 320. He was a big guy back then. Don't forget,
No doubt.
Boomer was left-handed, so he
Yep.
was as valuable protecting the quarterback as Anthony was, because when Boomer
Yep.
would turn to his left, because he's left-handed, his blind side was the right. And Joe had to
Yep.
block Reggie White, he had to block Mark Gastineau, and a lot of other great rushers, and he blocked them.
All right. So, Coach, let me ask you, um, during your coaching career, you coached for the New York Giants for a little bit, and you had an offensive lineman that you had playing for you by the name of Scott Peters. And he is now the new Bengals offensive line coach. Tell us what Scott Peters was like as a football player for you with the Giants.
Well, when I was with the Giants, I think it was my last year with the Giants. I think 2003, somewhere in mid-season, we had some injuries, and I don't know how we got Scott, but we got him from the Eagles. They either traded
Yep.
him or we picked him up some way, and he had a bad ankle, but he played on it, and I got him in mid-season, and the next week he started for us for the remaining 8 or 9 games that we had left at left guard, and he was
Wow.
smart. He was tough. He was he was like I say, he paid attention, and he was good. He was outstanding, and I only had him for half a season. We got him right in there and worked. He
Right.
was so strong. I watched him on the bench press, okay, and uh, he threw up like 570 pounds. I said,
Jeez.
wow. And he never believed in the bench press because he believed that offensive linemen more use their lats and
Yep.
obviously their, the small of the back here.
The
And
tricep. Yeah.
yeah, triceps, etc. And but again, he was so strong. He was naturally strong. He was a All American out of Arizona State, and he was
Right.
a like I say, I think he was about a fourth round draft choice for the
You're
Eagles.
right. He
Uh,
was.
but he was tough. He was nasty. He finished blocks. I mean, he had that. I mean, he had it. And I
Yeah.
was so happy to get him, although I only had him for a short time. So that was my experience with him as a player.
Did you foresee him potentially being a coach? Was he that kind of guy? Was he a guy that absorbed and wanted to absorb more? Was he inquisitive? Did he ask a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
questions?
he wanted to know everything. He stayed with me after practice, etc. But I didn't picture him as a coach yet because he still played another
Sure.
6, 7, 8 years as a player.
Right.
But what he did was, after he got done playing, uh, he got into the martial arts area. He
Right.
started his own gym, and he trained some of these top martial arts guys. I mean, he learned martial arts and he trained guys like Brock Lesnar, etc. And then eventually he got so good at martial arts himself, he was a world champion in jiu-jitsu. He went over
Yeah.
to Copenhagen or somewhere in Europe, and he beat the number one man in his weight division in jiu-jitsu. So here's a kid that went from a football player to learning martial arts to then starting his own company. He started his own company and he called it the tip of the spear. And the tip of the
Yeah.
spear was like the palm of your hand when you strike a blow, and everything was playing long, not short with your arms. So he became an expert at teaching the use of the hands and different counters, and the guy does this to you and you knock his hands down, the guy does this to you, you come up with your hands, or and so he was a trainer of regular people, of football players, high school players, college players, and he would go all over the country to all of these schools, colleges, high schools, and train their offensive linemen in martial arts. So then what happened was we had this clinic in Cincinnati that I started back in the early 80s, and we called it the offensive line clinic or the cool
Yep.
clinic. And
Yep.
one year we brought Scott back to speak on his expertise. And that's the first time I'd seen him in probably 15 years or so, and he was excellent. And that's when he continued to work with all these college teams, high school teams, pro players in the off season. They would go to see Scott Peters. Scott Peters is the guy to see. Scott Peters is better than your regular coach. He's going to make you a better player than the coach that you have on your team. And so after Scott got that reputation, I got closer to him. I would go visit him. He and I would talk techniques and football and schemes. And then he started to learn the schemes, which, he was a guard and a center in college, but he played some center in the NFL. So he had to know the blocking schemes, etc. But what he did then do is excel at the blocking schemes. He learned all the power plays and the duo plays and the zone plays. And so he wasn't just a hands-on strike guy. He then learned the schemes of the plays. And I became very close with him. We visited back and forth. I learned a hell of a lot from him, even though I was old. He was like a younger brother for me. And so Bill Callahan, who and I are very close, was
Sure.
at the Redskins. I said, Bill, you got to bring this guy in or go visit him. I said, he's the best. So Bill Callahan, who was with the Redskins, he brought Scott. He went and visited Scott, and he said, wow, this guy is something. And I think Scott went to a number of NFL teams and worked with the players. But then when Bill Callahan got to the Cleveland Browns, he hired him as his assistant line coach. So for 4 years, Scott learned under Bill, who's probably the greatest line coach in the NFL to date, older, more experienced. And then Scott got all this experience under a great coach. And then when Bill Callahan went to Tennessee, and Scott, who was at Cleveland, then got promoted to be the headline coach at the New England Patriots. So now he's his own boss at the Patriots. Well, they allowed Scott, when they let, I think, Coach Mayo go, they allowed Scott to speak to other teams. And then the Bengals interviewed Scott. And I think he was one of 5 or 6 guys they interviewed. I'm not sure how many. And they ended up hiring him. But in summary, what I've put out there on Twitter, what I've put out there just generally is this is the best new age offensive line coach. He knows all the techniques. He'll make the players better. He'll make them better in pass protection. He knows the blocking schemes. And, obviously you've got to have the good players, but he will make sure that the underdeveloped, the new players, the younger players, the free agents get to their potential, get to be to their 100%. He's terrific. I mean, I love the guy. There's not a smarter guy as far as coaching techniques. What's very impressive for the fans and for you, Dave, if you're allowed on the field or go or watch them practice in training camp or OTAs, watch how hard he works. He works harder than the players. I mean, when he's done, his whole body is full of sweat. And then the players see this and they say, wow, the coach is working harder than we are.
Right. Am I doing enough? What's going on? Yeah.
I mean,
I tell you, you know what he sounds like? He sounds like Jim McNally. I mean, you're describing yourself. You were exactly that guy, and you were revolutionary. You thought outside the box with techniques, and I mean, the stuff you did with hand placement and techniques and all that sort of thing was like, I mean, new to the world, And
the thing about it, even though I'm 81 years old, I've learned a lot from Scott over the
Yeah.
years because I've stayed active with camps and clinics, and I was actually with the Bengals for 10 years as a consultant, and I would keep
Yep.
up with Scott. And so, even at my age, I haven't fallen into that old school mentality. I've kept up with the updated techniques, and a guy like Scott has helped me stay updated. So now that when I watch NFL film, etc., I can see good things, bad things, and I understand protections and all that. And that was because of the help of dealing and working and associating with Scott.
All right. So, I mean, the thing is, you're still on Twitter demonstrating techniques and the latest way to approach and to attack, and to counter and all that. You're a football lifer, like you said. You're a football guy. There's no question about it. And at 81 years old, man, the energy is impressive. I can't say enough about what I see here.
Well, the reason is that uh, the Twitter world is worldwide. I mean, I
Right.
have, oh my God, I don't know, probably 24,000 followers, but sometimes on one of my videos on technique, I might get 100,000 views. Uh,
Yeah.
Many times I get 2 or 3 thousand views, but my point is that I have tried to help and raise the bar in offensive line play in high school, college, and if any NFL coaches watch on Twitter, which they do, but they can't put anything out there because they don't want to give away their stuff. But
Sure.
again, I have affected coaches from England and Germany and all over the United States of America. I've got so many offensive line friends all over the USA that I probably have had 100 or more T-shirts, hats, uh, pullovers sent to me from high school and college coaches that are thanking me for what I put out there to try to help their offensive linemen get better.
There's no doubt in my mind you're the number one ambassador to offensive line play, coaching, whatever that's ever that there's ever been. I mean, you're a connection to so many eras and techniques and everything else. It is phenomenal. Let me ask you about some of the players that he's going to be coaching. And like you said, Coach, and you did the same thing. That's why you're saying that Coach Peters is so good with late draft picks and college free agents and all. You did the exact same thing. I mean, the guys that came to the Cincinnati Bengals in the later rounds and came as college free agents became great football players under your tutelage and your guidance. So let's talk about a couple of tackles that he's got. Orlando Brown obviously came into the league as a very high draft pick, as has Amarius Mims. What do you see? Because I know you study the tape, you break it down, and nobody does it any better. What's your take on what he's got to work with at the offensive tackle position for the Bengals?
Well, I think he's got two big guys, obviously, right? And then that Mims will be in his second year. He was
Yep.
hurt a bit too, right? Mims.
Yeah. He had a broken hand.
Yeah, I think he can take those two big guys and make them, uh, you know, as good as any in the league. Like the Buffalo Bills, I think right now may have uh, perhaps the top O line with two great tackles.
Yep.
And I think that Scott can, because those guys are talented too. You know what I mean? They're not late
Sure.
round draft choices. So I think
Sure.
that he will improve or at least get those two tackles, barring injury, up to their maximum, well, or close to maximum ability. And I think anybody else that's a backup, he'll improve them. So I think who's some of the backup tackles? Devin Cochran from Georgia Tech.
Yes.
He'll
Yes.
make him better if he's still on the team.
Right.
Is
And
there
then
any
Cody
other?
Ford plays everywhere. Cody Ford plays tackle, guard. He plays, he's
Cody
very versatile.
Ford,
He's played them all.
I watched him at Oklahoma. I thought he was a good prospect. Scott will bring the most out of him, okay, because he's a big guy. And what he'll do is he'll teach these guys how to be quick. I mean, fire their feet, move quickly. How fast can you get your hands up? How fast can you get your hands on a guy? Uh, Scott likes to teach, when you can do it, and there's not any crazy defensive looks. Kind of if there's some normal looks, he likes the offensive lineman to jump. What I mean by jump, to go forward and take them
Right.
on short, so the quarterback's got more vision. He just
Right.
doesn't sit back there and catch guys. He'll teach them how to be aggressive, short set, if you want to call it, jumping, what you want to call it. He knows how to pick up crazy looking stunts. They walk two guys up in the A gap. Which way's the center going to go? And I'm sure Joe Burrow controls a lot of that, as well as Karras. But he'll make those two tackles. He'll get them as close to their maximum ability as possible, and then any of the other guys who are, marginal or just average, he will bring the best out in them. I mean, he just will work and work and work and work. And like I say, you need to watch him, and so do all the fans if they go to practice. Watch him work. Go down in his drills and watch him sweat and watch him move and watch him converse. And the thing about it is he knows the body. He's very smart as far as when he explains about using a certain move with his hands. He knows all the body parts and the verbiage on what they're doing. I mean, they don't have to.
Right.
They don't have to be, a Rhodes Scholar, but I mean, he has studied the body, and he
Right.
studied how to strike blows and how to deliver contact better than anyone else I've seen.
So he's an expert at applying anatomy and physiology to the game of football, right? I mean, it's like if,
Absolutely,
if you
absolutely. And I, like I say, maybe a player will have a bad game. Maybe some of the players, who knows who I'm talking about, but maybe some of the players aren't quite good enough. Don't forget, I mean, everybody can get beat at any time. So it's
sure,
not going to be 100% perfect where every guy on
right.
every play grades 100%. But if anyone can bring out the best in the players, it's him. And they hit the jackpot when they hired him.
Another thing that it sounds like that he is an attribute that he has that you had and have tremendous passion for the game of football, and you coached with such passion and energy that it was contagious. And now your players play with passion and energy, and it sounds like and it looks like watching his players that they play with a lot of passion and energy. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes, the thing about it is he's a hands-on guy, and I don't mean
Yeah,
that he's punches him in the face or anything like that. But when he demonstrates, he grabs a hold of him and pulls him and pushes him and this and that. He is.
just like you. You did that, just
I
like
did
you.
that even though I was small,
You
but
did.
he's 6'3" and he probably weighs 250. So what I'm
Right.
saying, he will be stronger. I can't say exactly how strong everybody. He will be stronger than any of the offensive linemen if they put him
Wow.
through any strength drills. That's how strong he
Wow.
is. So when he
Wow.
demonstrates, he grabs a hold of them and shows them the stuff. It's not like a coach that just puts his hands in his pocket and blows a whistle.
Right.
This guy
Right.
grabs you, shoves you, pushes you, shows you. He's the best. But at least he's the best I know. So again, the quarterback's got to be good. The receiver's got to be good. The line's got to do their job. The defense has got to be good. But so I'm saying is, they may not win every game, but I think he will bring the best out of the
Right.
offensive linemen, uh, whoever they have or whoever they draft, and it will be a pleasant surprise to everybody in the Cincinnati area.
Man, I'll tell you that gives you what you're talking about. A former player in the NFL for 7 seasons, 4th-round draft pick coming out of college, plays 7 years, and a 2-time Brazilian jiu-jitsu champion.
Can you
And he's
imagine,
like,
Dave, a champion, not just
yeah,
a guy that likes to fool around in the gym with martial, a
right,
world champion that
2 times,
then progressed into learning how to apply these different hand strikes to football.
right,
He's not just a
right,
martial arts guy. He can apply because he knows when a defensive guy, when he runs a bull rush or he does a long armed rush or this, or what's the best
right.
counters against this, that, and the other. So he has learned to apply what he learned in martial arts to real football, which is just an
That's crazy.
unbelievable transformation.
It is, but as a former player, I'm thinking the current players will be, man, this dude, he's got instant cred. I mean, I'm listening to what this dude said.
He's
He'll
got
have credibility like
to
that,
me.
man.
To me, he's got a pedigree already. Regardless, I mean, when he was with the Patriots, I don't think they had great players. Okay, I think their line got better. Okay, they have
Yep,
a good young
agreed.
quarterback. Okay, so you got to have some good players too. You can't. I mean, Anthony Munoz, I may have helped, but he was a great player, the greatest player that ever played. I mean, a guy like
Generation.
you worked hard. You were a good player, so you were easy to work with. You can't. He's not gonna. He's not gonna make a star out of somebody that doesn't have some talent. So you've got
Right.
to have talent to begin with. And but my point is that even the later round picks that have some talent, he'll raise them up from maybe a guy that's a 6th-round draft choice. When Scott gets done with him, he may be as good as a 2nd-round draft choice.
So now he's the first thing he's got to do is start grading with his own eyes, the current offensive line, how they played last year, all that sort of thing. Make his decisions as to what to do and where to go. And then, here comes the draft and veteran free agency and all that sort of thing. I mean, it's a heck of a task that he's embarking on. You do it every year. Is he got an eye in your estimation? Has he got a pretty good eye for talent, for some hidden talent? It's like people might overlook a guy and he's like, I can do something with that guy.
Yeah, because he worked 4 full years doing that with the Browns and 1 full year with the Patriots. So for 5 years in a row, being full time on a staff, he's have
Yeah,
to evaluate players, plus evaluate the players that he already has through the
right.
offseason study. So I don't think that'll be a problem. I mean, it's like anything else. You got to put people in categories. Well, this guy's a 1st-round talent. This guy's a 5th-round talent. This guy's a free agent, but he's got some potential. So I think it's a combination of everybody on draft day. Duke and Mr. Brown and all the others that contribute to scouts, along with Scott, that will make up who they're going to take. You know what I mean? So, he certainly is not going to be the only one that says take this guy. I mean, they do it all together.
Right, right.
But I will guarantee you that if he likes a guy, that he's probably pretty good, or he probably will become pretty good with Scott's coaching.
So can't wait to meet Scott Peters. Can't wait to watch him operate. All I know is a guy that played for Jim McNally and coached with Bill Callahan, in my estimation, the 2 greatest line coaches that ever coached the game of football. I mean, he's got a pedigree now. He's got a pedigree, and I can't wait to see him operate, man, because I know for a fact. In fact, I had a quick phone conversation with him, and 2 names that came up right away: Jim McNally, Bill Callahan. So he's grateful and he's appreciative, and it sounds like he's a hell of a guy, and it sounds like he's a tremendous football coach. And Coach Jim McNally, that's what you are, a hell of a guy and a hell of a football coach, and can't thank you enough for your time and what you've done for the game of football.
I'll tell you, the first time you meet him, okay, because you got big hands, you're a big guy. Shake his
Right.
hand.
Right.
and your hand will melt in his. And then take your other arm and pat him on the bicep.
Right.
Biceps are like Popeye. And he doesn't really lift weights. You know where he gets strong and whatever? Through all his grabbing and pushing and pulling of the players. That's his workout. Now, he may do some cardio and he may do a little lifting, but what I'm saying to you, his actual hands on work makes him stronger. When you grip his hand and you pat him on the bicep, you will feel an Iron Man.
I love it. Love it. Coach, can't thank you enough. You're the best to your family, and enjoy yourself. Dave Lapham here. While games are over for the season, there's no off season for In the Trenches with Dave Lapham or First Star Logistics. First Star Logistics gave away great prizes during the season, which will continue with exclusive content in the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. So please do me a favor, subscribe to In the Trenches, hit the like button, and visit the First Star Media Group YouTube channel for exclusive content and special giveaways.